Oh, welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, yeah, sorry, I was asleep taking a nap real quick. Didn't know we were live. Now I'm playing. I'm back again, guys, with a game between Wesley and Nodirbek Abdusattorov. This is from round 17 of the Speed Chess Championships, and it is a blitz game, a 3 minutes plus 1 second increment game. Considerably slower than the games that I've looked at before, because the other two games I looked at were bullet games. But this is a very nice, clean game. Has a lot of tactics. I have a lot of side variations I'll be showing you guys here. If you guys are ready, I'm ready. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what we have here. Get this unplugged. Bam. All right, so we have E4, C6. So we have a Caro-Kann. All right, so knight to F3, D5, D3. Following the same lines as we did before in the previous two games here. All right, so now we have he's varying on the variation he's playing here. So we have D takes E4, D takes E4. So this is kind of like a queen swap line. All right, so queen takes D1 check, king takes D1. Now generally it's not good for the side that gets their queen swapped and they have to move their king. Because as you can see, white doesn't have the ability to castle in this position. Their king is pretty much stuck in the middle of the board. So sometimes that can be a bad thing. Very often when the queens are off the board, it's not as bad of a thing. A lot of the tactics and situations where you're in some real trouble come from, you having the queen still on the board when you have to sidestep with the king. But as you can see, white has the ability to bring this bishop out, bring this rook out onto, E1 and stuff like that. So it's not that bad of a situation for white here. All right, so we have G6 and we have A4. And A4 is actually the brand new move of the game. This definitely doesn't look like a regular position. This is definitely a pretty crazy position already. We have the king in the center of the board. We have the A4 pawn rolling out. I don't know about you guys, but this definitely doesn't look like a position I've seen at any time before here. All right, so we have F5, just playing some kamikaze chess. As you can see, there's a lot of pawn moves made by black. It's like we got G6, we got F5, C6, D5, and not a development of a piece. And so, like I said before, generally that's a bad thing, but because white has already made their own kind of pawn moves and they have their king stuck in the middle of the board, it's not so bad of a situation for black here. All right, so we have bishop to C4. All right, so bishop to G7, knight to G5. Just putting a little tickle on this F7 square. Like I said before, guys, the F7 pawn, the F7 square is it's only guarded by the king, so this is a pretty tender square usually. The king has a lot of movability in this position, so it's not as bad of a situation here. All right, so we have knight to F6. All right, so bishop to F7, like I said, trying to get that king to move. White has lost his ability to castle, so trying to do the same thing for black here. All right, so king to F8. All right, bishop to E6, trying to hit that undefended pawn here on C8 here. All right, so we have knight to A6. All right, pawn takes F5, pawn takes F5. King to E2, just trying to clear the way for this rook to come out here on D1 here. All right, so we have knight to C7. Just adding a further attacker to this bishop, asking it what it wants to do. So we go ahead and see a trade here. Bishop takes C8, rook takes C8, and bishop to F4. And we have knight F to D5. And now, black has actually played very precise. When I was looking at this game, pretty much every time the computer suggested a move, it was the move that black made. So black has a pretty good advantage here. It's definitely, what you want to be doing as black, what black has done here. So this is pretty ideal play. Abdusattorov has actually, handled this position very well as black here. All right, so we have bishop takes C7, and we have knight takes C7, and we have knight to D2. And so we have E5 in this position. Now, if we just back up a touch here, when knight goes to D2 here, If you guys want to go ahead and pause the position here and see what Abdusattorov actually missed. Actually, both players missed this continuation because if Wesley So had seen this, had calculated this deep enough, he definitely wouldn't have gone into this position here. But as Black, go ahead and stop the video, like I said, and see what Black missed here in this position. We'll be waiting for you here. Come on. Come on. There we go. Okay. All right. Welcome back, guys. Now, for those of you guys that were able to do it, congratulations. You were able to calculate a couple of moves deep. Like I said, Abdusattorov and Wesley So actually both missed this continuation because, like I said, if Wesley So had calculated this one move further, he definitely wouldn't have gone into this because this is actually definitely losing a pawn for White here. And the move is bishop takes b2. I'm sure a lot of you guys immediately saw this move. It looked like a pretty good move, but I think maybe some of you might have been kind of discouraged from playing this move because of rook to b1. And it seems like you're just kind of, White is getting their pawn back, and they're also getting an active rook. But the key move in this position here is bishop back to f6. This takes advantage of what I'm always telling you guys about undefended pieces. And as you guys can see, this knight is undefended. So the Black bishop can actually gain a tempo on this knight at the cost of a pawn, which of course, if you win a piece as opposed, for a pawn, that's a very beautiful trade. And so, just continuing a little bit more into this line, we probably see something like h4 and, h4. And so we got h6 come in, and we'll just back the knight up to f3, knight g to f3, and then Black has the ability to stop that attack of that b7 square with b6. And so I think that I'm pretty confident that both players, this is a fairly fast game, so it's not like they're sitting there for a couple of minutes calculating this stuff. So I think that both of them just kind of lightly calculated, and they got to the position here where bishop takes b2, rook a to b1, and then bishop would probably just back up to g7, and then you'd be able to take this pawn here on b7. And both of them kind of didn't like that continuation, and so that's why we see Abdusattorov going e5. Not thinking that there's any fruit to that, taking that b2 square. And so here we have knight to c4, and we have king to e7. Get here. All right, so we have rook a to d1. All right, knight to d5, and knight back to e3. So we have knight takes e3, f takes e3, and we have e4. And I'll be putting up in the upper left-hand corner my video on the pawn freeze. Abdusattorov actually kind of did it to itself here. He pushed this pawn here, and he kind of allowed this pawn to stop both of these pawns. So this is definitely going to be something important over the next couple of moves. So we have rook h f1, just immediately attacking that backward pawn here. Since it doesn't have the ability to push forward because of the move one move earlier here. And so we have rook c to f8. All right, so we have rook to d2, and we have h6. And now, of course, in this position, that same idea from earlier, bishop takes b2 doesn't quite work because we'll see rook to b1. And we'll see bishop, if you try to do the same concept as earlier, bishop to f6, it actually fails to rook takes b7 with check. And now, as you can see, the king is in a pretty bad spot here. The only move is to back it up to e8, and then you'll see knight takes h7, and the computer actually suggests rook takes h7, which looks completely counterintuitive. But in this particular situation, there's not really a lot better than this. And so you drop the rook and run on the h7 square. And, of course you can block with bishop or try to do rook here, but you just have a lot of pawns, and this is the power of a rook being rook being on the 7th, the pig on the 7th, and so you definitely don't want to go into that position there. So all right, so we have like I said, we see h6, and we have rook, knight back to h3, bishop to e5, and we have knight to f4. just blockading that pawn and making it really hard to push here. All right, so we have bishop takes f4, and you know, because in this position here, you know, we're definitely looking at this family fork here on g6 with check, so we definitely don't want to fall into that. But you know, of course, we couldn't really see anything like king to f6, you know, like king to f6, because you know we just allow the penetration of the rook on d7. You know, to try to defend, you might see something like rook to b8, and you know, g4 comes, and you know, it's not the best. I mean, trying to take with the pawn here, then you have some discoveries and stuff like that, and you definitely don't want to, you know, don't want to get into that type of situation here. So we have bishop takes f4. All right, so we have rook takes f4, king to e6, and then we have g4. And so we see rook h to g8. You know, because you know, if you were to take pawn here, you know, you just allow rook takes e4 with check, and then you know, of course, the king's gonna come down to f5, and you know, we're just taking punches. We're just taking little pokes at all of the weaknesses in black's position. You know, trying to activate our rook, getting it over to the b file, and attacking this backward pawn here on b7. And so you know, we're gonna defend it probably with b6, and then we have the rook coming to d7. And like I said before, guys, you know, the power of that rook being on that 7th rank is very, very dangerous. It puts you know, the opposing player in a really very defensive position. So we're probably going to have to go something like rook to a8. Then rook comes back to f4 with check. And so we have king to e6, rook over to c7, just continuously just, you know, poking at the weaknesses that black has in their position. So we'll probably see something like rook h to c8, rook takes c8, rook takes c8, and then we'll see, you know, rook takes g4. And as you can see, black is up an entire pawn here. So, you know, going back to rook h to g8. All right, so we have g takes f5. We have king to e5. You know, of course, if we have you know, if we have rook takes f5, you know, the whole point of taking on f5 was to undermine the protection of this e4 pawn here. And so, you know, we'll have rook to e4 check, you know, just possibly a variation like rook to e5, just blocking. We'll see rook takes e5 and then king takes e5. And as you can see, black, you know, white is up an entire pawn here as well. And so, you know, we see rook coming to d4, rook to g2 check, king down to d1, rook f to g8, rook d takes rook d. Capture e4 with check. We have king to f6, rook to e6 check. All right, so we have king to f7, and rook takes h6. And so, you know, this basically the maneuvers that we saw with the rooks here is, you know, kind of trying to work our way over so that we can defend this pawn. Because of course, you know, if black has the opportunity, you know, they're going to take here with and then they're going to be setting up, you know, possible checkmates here. With this rook on g8 coming down to g1 to, you know, deliver checkmate. And, you know, of course, you'd have to throw this rook in the way, and, you know, just, you know, takes their stuff. So, you know, the whole purpose of us making these maneuvers with the rooks is to try to make sure that we defend against checkmate. And so, of course, now, you know, if we had something, you know, we might have something like rook to g1 check. You know, the king will just kind of mosey up, and, you know, we got our you know, we got our king nice and safe here on a c3 square. So we see c5 here, and we see b3. Just adding, like, you know, complete defense to this pawn chain here. All right, so we see rook to g1 check, king to e2, rook over to c1, trying to, you know, like, you know, black trying to poke at white's weaknesses as well. All right, so we have rook to d3. All right, so rook over to d8 with check, king to c3, rook back to g8, king to b2. Attacking this undefended rook here on c1, trying to knock it out of the way. So, you know, of course, you're going to try to make the most active move possible, and that's going to be rook to e1. All right, so we have f6. We have rook to g2. All right, and so we have rook to h7. And it is actually in this position here that Abdusattorov actually runs out of time, and so he flags on time. And so, you know, basically the situation that you have here is, you know, the king is in check here. And, you know, there's not a good block. You know, of course, you don't want to do something like move the king down, because you're just going to be pushing this pawn immediately to the touchdown, to the to the promised land. And so, the only real chance that you have in this position to try to, do anything to prevent the pawn from promoting for free is going to be king to f8. And so, this is something that's really instructive too, because, this is perfect in-game type of technique. Of course, in this position, black is severely, completely lost. But this is a kind of an instructive example here because, a lot of times when you guys are playing in games with like king and pawn versus a king, and you're trying to force it through, or you're trying to, you're on the opposing side and you're trying to draw, something that you learn is, whenever you do have to give away and take a step back, you're going to want to take a step directly back. And so, as you guys can see, we just run through a couple of different options. I mean, if you move rook to e8 like this, of course, this next move is going to come with check. Then you're going to have to back the king over. And then you have check coming here. And, there's really not a good way to block this. So, as you guys see in that particular position, moving to the side or even to this one here, it's the same. It's pretty much more of the same thing. It kind of transposes into the same thing that we looked at a second ago. But, it kind of wastes the tempo and gives white the tempo to be able to do. And so, like I said, in this position here, the best thing you can do is move king to f8. You're gonna have f7 that's gonna come, and the king is more or less stalemated, and its only possible option is to go over here. And it's really sad, when you're playing a game or you're looking over the game and the computer gives a move like rook to g8 because you're like, man, hold on, dude. Like, this is literally all the other options are mating. This is the only option that doesn't say mate in something. This is like, the computer is like, this is literally the best thing you can do. And so it's like, man, that's it. Like, I'm hurt. I'm hurt looking at this right here. It's like the only saving move is rook g8. And that's definitely not taking a poke at these players, because I mean, Wesley So is a super GM. And Abdusattorov is a very accomplished GM in his own right at 15 years old. So that is the round 17 blitz game between Wesley So and Nodirbek Abdusattorov. And so you saw good use of rook moves, rook maneuvers, and a lot of tactical possibilities and stuff in this game. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. It was a nice little challenge for me. So if you guys have any other games you want me to talk about or analyze for you guys, or just anything else you have any ideas for me to do, go ahead and leave the comments below. Go ahead and subscribe and like for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I appreciate it.